Hello, my name is Erin. I am a fifth year urology resident. I have about 4 months left of residency, which is so crazy. And I wanted to answer some questions that you guys have left on some of my YouTube videos and some of my TikTok videos. So I thought I would do that here. I hope you guys enjoy. If you have any questions, please leave them below and let's jump in. So the first question is, how would I compare the difficulty and the time commitment of the STEP exams versus the board exams that we have to take during residency? So one clarification is for us, and during my residency, we take like an in-service exam. It's not necessarily a board exam, but it is preparing us for the board. So it's kind of like a pseudo board exam, but the score doesn't get reported to a board. It is just kind of like a practice test. I would say that I spent way more time studying for the STEP exams than I do these yearly in-service board exams or the practice exams that don't get reported to the board. I had dedicated study time for step 1 and step 2 and not so much step 3, but I was on a lighter rotation my intern year. That is not the case in residency. You don't really get standard study time to study for these in-service exams. You're kind of fitting in the studying around when you're not working, or if you have like a case that gets canceled, or in clinic, if you can like look up guidelines between patients. You're just trying to fit it in whenever you can. And so I would say that I spend less overall time studying for these in-service exams, like sitting down and studying. That being said, every day I'm in the hospital, every day I'm operating, every day I'm seeing patients, I'm learning skills and learning information that is applicable to these in-service exams. I am taking a month of like dedicated study time to study for the actual board exam, which you take after you graduate residency. It's in July this year. And I graduate in June. So I'm taking about a month of actual study time to study for that board exam. Because, I'm more well-versed in urology now, and that is my specialty, I don't anticipate the studying being as hard, but obviously there's a lot of little details that you need to study up on the guidelines. So I would expect that I end up studying maybe a little bit less than STEP, but I'm not 100% sure, and I have this dedicated time. I'm going to use it for studying. The next question is your call from home or is it in the hospital? And I just thought this was a good question to go over because I don't know if people really know the difference, or if it's something that a lot of people who aren't like in residency think about. So in general, there's two types of call. There's home call and in-house call. Home call is where you're literally holding the pager from home. You are taking call from your house. If something happens where you need to go into the hospital, you drive from your house to the hospital, go in, and then either come home or potentially sometimes you have to sleep in the hospital. And then in general, you don't get a post-call day. Because you are technically home call, you then work the next day. Versus in-house call, you're taking call from the hospital. You are in the hospital, you don't leave. Generally, I think this is reserved for busier services where you don't really get a chance to go home, right? You're like constantly in the hospital having to do stuff overnight. And then in general, you get a post-call day, meaning that you get to go home the next day. The pros of home call is you get to take call from home. If it's not a busy night, you just get to sleep in your own bed. I think the con is that you don't get a post-call day. So if you've had a terrible night, then you are operating or doing things when you're a little bit more tired. Versus the pros of in-house call are you get a post-call day. Cons, you miss a day of work, which if you are in a program where you need to like brush up on your skills and maybe there's not a ton of like overnight operations, then you miss a day of operating, which I think is a con. And then also you're in the hospital for like 24 hours. So anyway, my hospital and how my call works across all sites is home call. So we are at home and we go in if we need to go in and then come back and then go in the next day for work. And if you have a rough night, we really do try and, cover and get people out. And that is changing, I think, in a lot of urology programs. A lot of urology programs are now becoming busier and busier. And so a lot of programs are either going to like a night float system or an in-house call system, but mine is still home call. I don't know what I would prefer. I haven't experienced really in-house call, so I can't really compare. I'm over the roughest part of it. I'm backup call as a chief, and so I'm home call, but the juniors like hold the actual pager and just call me if they need help, which obviously I prefer that over being in the hospital. The next question is, am I doing a fellowship after residency or becoming a general urology attending? I am not doing a fellowship. I thought about this a lot during residency. This was a very difficult decision for me to make, whether or not I wanted to do a fellowship. There were a number of different fellowships that I was considering, and ultimately I decided what was better for me and for my life and for my job prospects was to do general urology, don't do a fellowship, go straight out of residency to a private practice job. For me, that made sense because I'm not really interested in doing academic medicine. I'm more interested in being in a private practice environment. If you are interested in academic medicine, I think it does benefit to do a fellowship just because that is what a lot of academic centers are looking for, fellowship trained urologists, and that was just not the career trajectory that I was interested in. I have spent 5 years in residency. I really like general urology. I enjoy the cases that you get to do in general urology, and I didn't really want to move somewhere else for a fellowship. So I am extremely happy with my decision, my ultimate decision. It did take a little while for me to make that decision, but I'm very happy with it, and I'm very excited to start my job. I had dinner with my practice last night, and everyone was so great, and I am just very excited, and I'm very happy with my decision. The next question is, do you notice that your patients have a preferred gender for their provider? And then they mentioned that OBGYN gives that option. I don't know if some urology practices give that option. None that I have rotated on have, but I'm not sure. I can't speak for all of them. I honestly have not had that many issues with this. As a woman, I think the issue would be if I had a male patient who did not want to discuss their urologic issues with a woman. And I really have not run into that many times. I think women are a growing percentage of urology, and so people are just getting more and more used to seeing female urologists, and it's not as much of a rarity anymore. And so I think that's just becoming more normal. And I really truly have not. I've had maybe 1 or 2 patients in 5 years say something, but really most patients, some patients will comment on it and be like, oh, I haven't really seen that many female urologists, or, oh, what made you want to do urology as a woman? But not in a judgmental way, just in a genuinely questioning way. And they're not refusing to see me. They're just curious. The next question is how to get most out of conferences as a medical student. I honestly did not go to that many conferences as a medical student. I just didn't have those opportunities. So amazing that that is something that you have the opportunity to do. I would say as a medical student, it's really just about networking, meeting people, meeting residents, meeting attendings, meeting program directors in the specialty that you're interested in, getting your name out there, getting your face out there. Being a known entity, I think, is such a great bonus in residency interviews and matching and everything like that. If someone recognizes you from a conference, it's just that deeper level of connection and that, oh yeah, that reinforcement of your face and your name. And so I just think it always serves to meet as many people as possible and get yourself out there. So I would say that is probably the best thing to do at conferences. The actual information going to the lectures is great and an amazing resource, but you'll have opportunity to learn that stuff as a resident, and you may not fully get the big picture as a medical student. At least I know for me, if I was attending some of these nuanced stone lectures as a medical student, I would not be able to fully appreciate it. And so I think just getting yourself out there and making those connections is the best thing you can do. The next question is, how do you deal with the hypochondriacness of being in medicine or in medical school? And this refers to as you start to learn more about the body and learn more about what can go wrong with the body, then you start to think you have all of these things wrong with you. I 100% experienced this. I don't think I handled it that well. I convinced myself I had MS in medical school and then got an MRI and didn't. So it's a really, really hard thing to handle. I think realizing that it's totally normal. Every single one of my friends had this. Like, we all convinced ourselves we had diabetes. We all convinced ourselves we had lupus. We all convinced ourselves we had like all of these autoimmune disorders. It's just like so normal as you're learning about these things to convince yourself that you have them or family members have them or all these things. I think you just have to do whatever works for you to help settle your anxiety. And I think it's kind of plays into the anxiety of being in medical school. So anything that you would normally do to help manage that anxiety, for me, it was like exercise, getting good sleep, and then, sometimes just getting things checked out. Like once I got that MRI and I was like, oh, I don't have MS, then I felt better, which is not probably the best advice. But, generally doing things that help manage your anxiety and realizing how rare a number of these things that you think you might have may be, and kind of really looking into, are your symptoms or the reason why you think you may have these things legitimate, or is this maybe just playing on your anxiety? So chatting with your friends about it, chatting with your family about it, if you need to, chatting with a doctor about it and having them reassure you, all of that can really help. The next question is, do you ever experience bullying from attendings, nurses, residents, anything like that? I can honestly say no. I have been talking a lot about this. I think that it certainly happens. It really, really does happen. The culture of medicine is really changing, I think, right now. And there used to be this culture of more toxicity and being harsh and like even more of a hierarchy. And I think it used to be a lot different than it is now. I think medicine's becoming a lot more inclusive, a lot more friendly, and just the whole vibe of medicine is changing for the better. My program is, I feel so incredibly lucky, especially when I talk to other people, even in other urology programs who maybe have experienced some bullying or being yelled at or harshness. Like, I truly have not really experienced that. I have certainly experienced being wrong and being corrected and being, not reprimanded, but corrected basically is the best term. But I have never been yelled at. I have never felt like lesser than. Like, I feel like I have such a good relationship with the nurses, with the attendings, with my co-residents, with, as a medical student, with the residents. Like, I just always have felt respected, and my opinion matters. And I think that is so important in medical education in general. It improves the experience so much. I think that one of the reasons maybe that one of the things that I think helps me is I really, really go out of my way to be nice to everyone as best I can. Be nice to the medical students, be nice to the nurses, like obviously nice to the attendings, nice to residents from other specialties. And I think just trying to build that relationship, build relationships with people, build that congeniality with people really helps prevent maybe some of these harsher situations from happening. But I think also it's just changing in medicine for the better. And you kind of can pick that up when you're interviewing at programs and try and picking up on a vibe. And I think every year it's going to get better. All right, those are all the questions I have for today. I hope this video was helpful. I hope that it answered maybe some of the questions that you guys might have. If you obviously have any other questions, please leave them below. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.